بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. We are going through the third ruku of Surah Al-Baqarah. I've recited the first ayat in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses the human beings and the jinns. And the human beings and jinns are created to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Does that mean that we have to worship all the time, pray to Allah all the time, do zikr of Allah, and don't do shop work, don't do office work, don't do our household chores, don't look after parents and children and look after the country? No. The thing is, abdiyah or slavery of Allah has many spheres and many phases. Slavery of Allah at the time of prayer is to pray according to the Holy Prophet, where he prayed and the way Allah told us to pray, and that prayer time is finished. That's also ibadah, that's also slavery. But that's the expression of slavery, expression of ibadah, that we are your slaves. We are bowing in front of you, kneeling in front of you, and sitting in front of you, talking with you, Ya Allah, so we'll serve you. So that is actually the beginning of slavery. The beginning of ibadah or abdiyah, that is beginning of worship. That's the lip service of worship, like the ABC of worship. When we do the prayer, that means we are admitting the grandness of Allah, Allah as God, Allah as the King, Allah as the ruler, and Allah is the master. And we are His slaves and His subjects. We have no option other than to obey Him. So we are declaring this just in a conference with Him, in a meeting with Him. Then He sends us out. Go out of the prayer. Go into the home. So home is also a prayer room in the way. That's also a place of ibadah. How do you do ibadah? You look after your wife. You look after your wife. You look after your children, of your brother, sisters, father, mother, and all the neighbors. So that's also ibadat. So all these injunctions of Islam are of many levels. Although the basics, the fundamentals, the 5 pillars of Islam are the 5 ibadats. 5 ibadats, not really, but first is iman, which is faith. But faith borders with ibadah, as I have said, that the faith and amal, iman and amal, the journey is the same. So you start from iman, you go to the amal, you start from faith, you go to the practice, and when you do the practice, it revives your faith. So it is linked with your faith as well. So first pillar is shahada, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu, or you say la ilaha illallah muhammadur rasulullah. That's the first pillar of Islam. That's the basic of Islam, fundamental, not all Islam. That's the beginning. That's the alif of Islam, you can say. There is no one to be worshipped except Allah. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the messenger of Allah. So it teaches us 2 things, that we have to worship only Allah, obey Him alone. He is our master, we have to serve Him alone and no one else. Our kings and rulers, yes, if they obey Allah, fine. Our parents and your friends, if they obey Allah, we listen to them and we cooperate with them. And there is a rule, ta'awanu ala al-birri wa taqwa wa la ta'awanu ala al-ithmi wal udwan. You cooperate with those, with all the good things, and don't cooperate with the bad things. So it's a very simple rule. Cooperate who is obedient to Allah, and there is la ta'ata li makhluqin fi ma'siyatil khaliq. You cannot obey the makhluk, the creation, when there is a disobedience of the creator. So creator comes first, so Allah comes first, and after that we have freedom. Yes, when we have done everything which Allah has told us to do, and there are few things which He did not tell us to do, then we have a choice. We can do our own way. Where the way has also been prescribed by Him through His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then we have no option other than to follow that way. So first part of the shahada is la ilaha illallah. Here we declare our slavery. This is what Allah is telling us, that you have to be His slaves, worship Him. And worship is not just lip service, just doing the dua and namaz and prayer and salat. No, that is the beginning of worship. The worship expands outside with your body and with your mind, and then with your people around you and with the universe. And whatever the work you do, you should do in accordance with the rulings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for the service of Allah with the slavery. Even if a Muslim invents something, he should do it for the slavery of Allah and khidmah of people, serving the people, being slave to Allah, worshipping Allah, but serving the people, because serving of people is also the greatest worship. So whatever we do, even if we rule a country, we are servants of Allah, we are slaves of Allah, and we rule the country with a khidmah, with a service, as a service. So second pillar of Islam is salat. Salat is also ibadah, the 5-time daily prayer. The third pillar is zakat. What is that? That's all ibadah. But what is it? It's all finances, it's all money. You give money to the poor and needy people, and that's an act of ibadah. So that's a mali ibadah, ibadah bil mal. So this prayer, salat, is ibadah bil jism, bil badan, means with the body, physical worship. Then there is a financial worship, wealth, use wealth in worship, and these two are mentioned in the beginning. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, muttaqeen are those people, alladhina yu'minuna bil ghayb. Iman is mentioned, first pillar of Islam. Then the two pillars of action of Islam are mentioned, salat and zakat. Wa mimma razaqnahum yunfiqun, they spend from what we have given them. That's also zakat, sadaqat, charity, welfare and everything. And also spend, don't hoard money, but spend and invest money so that the people can benefit from it. Don't keep the money idle, and don't keep it concentrated in the hands of just the rich people. La takuna dulatam bainal aghniya minkum, so that the wealth does not remain circulated within the rich of you. It should be circulated within the whole society, so that the whole society is balanced, and this difference between rich and poor becomes less. So this is also ibadah. And then fasting. Fasting is ibadah of keeping hungry and then eating at the time. So it's not really starving, but controlling your diet, controlling your food and your emotions, anger and your lust and everything. So actually a training crash course every year for training your mind to obey Allah, to be His servant. So everything is catered towards ibadat of Allah. So the thing which keeps us or leads us towards ibadat or worship of Allah is also worship itself. So fasting is a worship, because it's an act of worship which links us with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We control our diet and our wishes and whims and our desires, because Allah, out of love of Allah, because Allah has ordered us to. And that's also Allah said, la'allakum tattaqun, the fasting has been prescribed on you because so that you become muttaqi, taqwa, you attain piety, closeness to Allah, the heedfulness towards Allah, you remindness of Allah's presence and Allah's being there. And in the same way, Hajj is also once a lifetime. So you go and visit places, Kaaba. So you visit Kaaba, you go out to Arafat, Mina and Muzdalifah, and you do Safa and Marwa and Tawaf. All these are actions, they are travel, they are not special zikr, but they are actions. You throw stones on the devil. So according to the Holy Prophet ﷺ, because we have declared Muhammadur Rasulullah, Muhammad ﷺ is the messenger of Allah, so we worship Allah by the way the Holy Prophet taught us. That's Muhammadur Rasulullah, that he is our Rasul, he is our guide, he taught us how to worship Allah. So everything he told us, and he ruled the people, he made a state, and he also fought wars, he also had social interaction, he also married, he also provided food, he also had financial transactions, he had also negotiations with non-Muslims, dealing with non-Muslims. All this becomes ibadah when you do it for the sake of Allah, to uplift Allah's kalima of Allah, the word of Allah, the word of Islam, the name of Allah be dominant over the world. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding us that you worship Allah, and worship, as I have explained, is not just these 5 fundamentals of Islam, of Iman. First is Iman and the 4 actions, but there is much more. So Islam spreads out, then it is the muasharat, means the social activities. There is akhlaq, dealing with the people and talking with them and behaving and interacting with them in a nice way, akhlaq. And then there is muamilat, means your transactions, banking, and there's so much dealing with money and trading and all these pursuits, if they are done according to the commandment of Allah, according to the Sharia, so the whole layout of commandments of Allah is called Sharia. The bylaws, laws and bylaws and the whole rules and regulations, these are the Sharia. So Sharia is not away from Allah's Qur'an and Sunnah. Qur'an and Sunnah is the source of Sharia. Sharia has come from Allah and Rasul, Allah and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Sharia is not man-made. The ulama, Sharia is not made by the Maulvis, by the ulama. The ulama are interpreters of Sharia. They explain it, they expand it, they just make it understood by the people so that people can act upon it. And it's a specialization job, like any field, like medicine. You go to the experts of the medicine, and what are they inventing medicine? No, they are trying to understand and try to enlarge and expand the medical industry. And they don't cure is not in their hand. They invent some medicine, but it's also in the line of the previous medicine. So they follow the footsteps of the previous discoveries and research, and then they do new things. So they are expert, and we go for our medical checkup or medical problems to an expert of doctor, and we don't consider that he is Nauzubillah God or he is absolute authority. No, if we don't agree with him, we can go to another doctor. If we are not happy with one, we go to another expert. Same is with the ulama, that the ulama are the interpreters of Sharia. They don't make Sharia themselves, and if anyone makes Sharia himself and misinterprets Quran or says things on his own authority and say, well, I'm saying this, so this is final. No, he should have a proof or inference in the light of Quran and Sunnah and the previous whatever practices have been the precedents. Then of course he is explaining, and you again accept his argument, you accept him, otherwise you go to another alim. So ulama don't have the monopoly of Sharia. You can become an alim provided you have the expertise and you have the knowledge. Everyone has a right to become an alim and scholar, but you don't. If you are not an alim, you have no right to basically explain Sharia. So basically, if you want to take a guidance, you go to the expert. So same way, these are ulama. Now we are here students, we are studying Qur'an in the light of what has been said in the Qur'an, what has been said in explanation of hadith, and in addition with whatever has been explained previously, plus what the ulama have explained. So we are trying to study, and this everyone can do. But then this study won't make you alim, it will make you knowledgeable and informative. But for alim, you have to go through that course which the ulama do it. So some people, they know study, and this is the problem with nowadays some of the youngsters. They study Quran themselves and they start interpreting themselves and then become an alim, and they think, oh, well, what I've said is final. I understand Quran, and they misinterpret, and this is creating disunity within Muslims. So as long as Muslim will refer to the scholars who are rightly guided scholars, ulama al-haq, ulama scholars of truth, they'll be on the right path. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning here that you worship Allah. So worship Allah in all fields of life: social, political, economical, transactional, trade, family, home affairs, and the affairs outside the home, your personal, individual or collective affair. All this comes under the domain of Sharia, and Sharia tells. Where Sharia does not tell, you have a choice to do your own way, but where Sharia has explained, then you have to follow that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that, O human beings, you should worship your Lord who created you and the people before you, and that will make you muttaqi. So taqwa needs following Allah, obeying Allah, being His slave. So if you worship Allah, be His slave, then you will become pious. You will become pious, have attained to piety and discipline. You will be disciplined. So it's not just the beard and that's the dress and the topi and the hijab, and you say, oh, I'm a pious. No, and no one can claim to be pious. Who knows who is pious? Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. Muttaqi is one who is in front of Allah. Muttaqi. Allah knows who is the most pious. And the Holy Prophets had the courage, and he could do it. He could say that I'm the atqakum, I'm the best pious of you, because he was indeed the Prophet. He was our guide. He was communicating with Allah, and he could claim. but none of us can claim to be the most pious, or even the pious at a lowest level. We can't claim ourselves we are neck, we are pious. We have to strive to be pious.